Greetings! You're listening to the Kingdom of Pinfall, and I'm Michelle, your guide on this terrifying wrestling journey. This is episode 11 and chapter 11. Begin with chapter 1, which is episode 1. This is chronological. Although, I may have an interlude episode soon where I tell you a different pinfall story. We've almost caught up to everything I already had completely written and ready. But luckily, pinfall is a big place with a very long and colorful history. So I've come up with some other little tales that take place in the kingdom, but they don't directly play into the WrestleMania in the main story. Check out my Linktree in the episode description, of course. I'm taking art commissions right now, as well as crochet and knitting. I do pet portraits. I also do wrestling fan art, as you should know by now. And now, with all of that stuff out of the way, let's get down to business. This chapter contains moderate violence, pretty harmless chapter. Basic wrestling with some magic and stuff. It also contains me singing again, as Elias is in this chapter, so warning for the bad singing. Luckily, there are no major accents to also torture you. And now let's go! Chapter 11. The Great Unliberation of Sami Zayn. The New Day exchange baffled glances, and then they all look toward Braun. Elias is chuckling and playing guitar as Sami and company scramble out of the crumbling tower of Starcade. The referee stops his count. Does Braun really need our help? Xavier asks the other two men. I mean, look at him. Look at them. He points and states the obvious. He's a lot bigger and has lightning powers. Sami ducks behind some rubble on the ground and peeks up over the top as Shinsuke and the cyborg Cesaro stand tall, but not literally as tall as Braun, the storm giant. Shinsuke begins doing some interpretive dance to Elias's guitar music. Sami tells him to stop, and he looks downtrodden and stands still. Do you suppose Shinsuke knows how to use the belt magic? Big E wonders and looks closely at the man who's wearing a strange suit with a very low V-neck down to his waist. Some stripes draw his eyes to the man's crotch, and from behind he can't help but look at his butt. This is very distracting. He's glad he doesn't have to fight him. Kofi says he would know what Braun was going to do before he did it, I guess. Is that how telepathy works? There's a murmur of unsure agreement and some shrugging. Then they look on. Cesaro charges toward Braun. He goes from stationary to full speed instantly. As he runs, his metal legs make some hydraulic noises, and he stomps across the sandy ground with a steady series of thumps. The gap between him and Braun is closed quickly, and Braun swings his electrified axe toward the robot when he is in range. Cesaro ducks, and his momentum carries him forward on his knees. After sliding for a few feet, he springs up again and extends his arms, flying into one of Braun's knees like a human-shaped torpedo. He impacts, and Braun grunts. Strowman leans to the side, staggered but not knocked completely off balance by any means. He focuses on Cesaro, who is running around his ankles, occasionally punching at his legs with his little metal fists. This doesn't seem to really hurt the giant, but does seem to be annoying him significantly. Definitely distracting him while Shinsuke studies him, looking for a weakness. Braun swats at Cesaro with one hand, trying to catch him. Get him! Get him! Sami points frantically toward Braun, yelling at Shinsuke. Shinsuke continues studying the situation, slowly walking toward Braun and keeping his distance. He moves fluidly and gracefully. Every motion appears to be part of a plan of some sort. Should we do something? Kofi then asks. I don't know. Xavier answers him. Let's see what happens? Clouds fill the sky, and Big E gazes toward the heavens as the wind begins to pick up. Should we back up in case of lightning, or maybe get out of this open space? What do you suppose lightning will do to Cesaro? Kofi then questions thoughtfully, his unicorn snorting and shifting uncomfortably in the quickly changing weather. What if the electricity makes him stronger? Or will it short him out, wonders Xavier. Will the rain make him rust like the Tin Man? Biggie is fascinated. They don't know the answer to any of these questions, and they decide to back up a bit farther from the storm giant as the sun is completely blotted out by thickening cumulonimbus clouds. Sami stands up and grabs at his hat as he watches Shinsuke dodge the axe, and Cesaro duck again out of the way of a big hand. Elias swings his guitar to his back and seeks shelter under the tower. It starts to rain lightly. Braun lets out a loud "Rah!" It is accompanied by lightning dashing between some of the clouds and a boom of thunder. All three of the unicorns rear up on their hind legs and try to turn away. It takes some effort for the New Day to keep them under control. They dismount and allow the animals to gallop off. Shinsuke circles around behind Braun and then leaps through the air to kick him in the back of his knee. This staggers him again, and Cesaro dives for the back of his other knee. He doesn't fall still, but he leans forward, brought a bit lower. As soon as Shinsuke's feet touch the ground again from his previous strike, he jumps up once more, this time plunging his knees into Braun's lower back. "Ha, ha, ha," Cesaro says robotically. E is very curious about how the cyborg works. Is he made of stainless steel? I wonder if Sami has to oil his joints or give him oil changes. Xavier wonders as well. Is he battery powered? Does he have to be recharged? Kofi joins in on the questions about the nature of Cesaro. Sami yells toward them. I don't have to oil him. He doesn't need oil changes and he doesn't need to be recharged. He's a cyborg. Cyborg. This means he has both organic and mechanical components, you dipshits. He is cybernetic, and you three are all uncultured swine. Oh, they respond in unison, all nodding and interested, enjoying the learning experience that this fight has become. The rain starts coming down harder, and they cautiously make their way across to the tower to get out of the downpour. Braun is emitting sizzling, crackling light as his temper rises, and the two men continually strike at his legs, attempting to bring him down to their level. His genes provide some protection from their pestering, but they appear to be too fast for him to go on the offensive. Sami is pacing, staying out of the rain, looking like he's on the verge of a coronary. Elias leans his shoulder against the stone wall and begins to strum away at his guitar again. He sings, "Not sure about the rules of this match. Pinfall has gone insane. A storm giant, a robot, and an artist are fighting in the rain." Cyborg! Cyborg! Sami corrects him. He is not actually a robot. Get it right if you're gonna write a stupid song about it. Elias clears his throat and picks up again. A storm giant, a cyborg, and an artist are fighting in the rain. The New Day are watching this unfold, and so is Sami Zayn. Will the Intercontinental Belt change hands or remain exactly the same? That song was fucking terrible. Terrible! Sami says to him angrily. You're not an artist. You're a talentless hack, and you have crumbs in your beard. I'll admit it was not my best, Elias confesses and looks at his beard for the supposed crumbs. I'm not very inspired by this fight. What? What is that supposed to mean? Sami takes offense to his comment. He points out at the scene. Look at them. Look at Shinsuke and Cesaro. They are beautiful, beautiful men, full of grace and poise and skill, and they are oozing talent out of all of their orifices. And you... Sami takes a deep breath and then finishes. You are stupid. Rah! Braun yells again, and this time he spins in a circle, trying to stomp on the smaller men. Without much warning, he brings his electrified axe down into the earth, splitting the ground, forming a substantial ditch, and forcing Shinsuke and Cesaro apart. It has become even darker. The clouds are more and more menacing, and the wind howling. A flash of lightning illuminates the madness and rage that has contorted Braun's face. As thunder rolls, he rips his axe from the ground, spins it above his head and brings it down again. Shinsuke moves out of the way just in time. Another crevice forms where the blade impacts, and it snakes away for at least 40 feet. He rips his weapon free, slinging up wet dirt and grass. He brings it down a third time, and Cesaro is forced to tuck and roll out of the way with some metallic clunking noises. Maybe, could we just get the Artist Collective to join us? Kofi suggests to Woods and Big E. As long as we have the Intercontinental Belt of Power, does it matter who has it? You know, like the tag belts. E answers unsurely. I don't know, man. Join you for what? What are you dum-dums talking about? Sami asks, not taking his eyes off of the fight. WrestleMania, says Xavier. WrestleMania, Sami shrieks. You all are seriously getting ready for a WrestleMania. Yeah, E tells him. Looks like we've got a WrestleMania non-believer among us, Elias says in a sing-song voice and plays a few chords, seeing if there's anything he can work with for his great ballad. He frowns, displeased. Sami protests, I'm not a non-believer. Their voices are drowned out by the loudest roll of thunder yet, and Braun extends his axe high above his head. A deafening, crackling explosion rings out as a bolt of lightning strikes and fills the giant with radiant white light. The onlookers shield their eyes and look away as Braun lets out an inhuman roar. Xavier opens one of his eyes slowly and expects to see Shinsuke and Cesaro's twitching bodies on the ground at Braun's feet. They were close enough to him that they would have been indirectly struck, surely. He's completely wrong and hears Sami giggling from nearby. The giggles turn into full-fledged cackling, and Sami raises his arms above his head in triumph, with his two artists standing defiantly against the storm giant. They're mouth guards, laughs Sami. I had them imbued with lightning resistance by a mage when we were in Smackville. Braun is such a sucker. Braun is completely enraged. The New Day didn't think he could get more enraged than he already was, but they were very wrong. Kofi looks at Xavier and E. He says only, uh-oh. Braun's eyes focus on Sami, bolts of electricity shooting from them. His temper is flared so high that he no longer cares about Shinsuke and Cesaro. He has forgotten about the whole point of this fight and just wants to kill Sami. He points toward the Great Liberator, whose laughter quickly fades when he realizes what is happening. The New Day rush quickly away from Sami, and Elias does the same in the opposite direction. Braun begins to run straight for him. Each footfall is loud as the thunder, and shaking the ground so much that everyone struggles to maintain their footing as they get out of the way. Sami is frozen in fear as the giant beelines for him. He manages only to brace himself for the impact, and let out a noise that sounds like "Eee!" Crashing into the ruins, Braun yells for Sami. Cracks wiggle up the stones and pieces crumble from the already damaged structure. The New Day grab onto each other, frantically guiding one another away from the hunk of parapet that falls a moment later. It shatters where they had been standing, and they cry out, startled. Braun drops his axe and pounds his fists into the tower as he angrily searches for Sami. More pieces of the old structure begin to crumble and fall. Braun wants to smash Sami. Sami, he roars, you little shit, you need to get these hands. There's no sign of Sami. Everyone is fairly sure he got squished by the remnants of Starrcade. Cesaro and Shinsuke take full advantage of the situation, unleashing a flurry of kicks into the back of Braun's knees. He finally falls forward into the battered wall. He catches himself, turns, being reminded of the two other men involved in the match. Cesaro climbs up Braun's body and punches him in his right eye with a very solid metal fist. Rah! Braun cries out and covers his eye, shaking the cyborg off of him and coming crashing down into the pile of rubble. Crap, Big E mumbles. The referee hovers between the New Day and Braun, watching them. He can't interfere. Rules still exist, but they are fast and loose, and not in the favor of SmackDown's heroes, it seems. Yeah, so, Kofi says, putting his hands on his hips, we maybe will need to just get the belt on our side and not necessarily on Braun Strowman. Charlotte is going to snap her fingers and break our legs, E comments, sounding afraid. That's not a thing, Xavier tries to remind him. Pretty sure she'll be mad, though. She'll yell at us. She's going to ground us and send us to our rooms, mutters Kofi, extremely disappointed. Shinsuke starts laughing and spreads open the already wide-open front of his strange one-piece outfit. He exposes his chest, puffs it out, and laughs wildly. He begins flailing his upper body back and forth, headbanging, and his laughter turns into a crazed yell. Braun is still pawing at his face after getting a robotic poke in the eye. Shinsuke jumps up and down a few times, gets a running start, and then plants a Kinshasa knee strike into the bridge of Braun's nose. Shinsuke's knee connects perfectly with a sickening crack. The rain stops and the clouds dissipate as Braun goes careening back, knocked unconscious. Yes! Sami emerges from under an archway that remained standing and protected him from the rest of the collapsing building. Everyone is in awe that he is unharmed, even Shinsuke and Cesaro. He yells at them, I want it! I want it! Xavier observes glumly and covers his face with his palm. We're going to be in so much trouble. Sami stands on Braun's chest and raises his arms in triumph. Shinsuke takes off the belt and hands it to him. Everyone else observes in confusion. The voice of Michael Cole, one of the mouthpieces of the Titan of Pinfall, clarifies for them. Whoever gets the win gets the belt, and the belt is staying with the Artist Collective. He doesn't sound very sure of what he's saying, but at least it's an explanation. So, Sami Zayn is the new Intercontinental Champion. Sami clutches the belt to his chest, hugging it tightly, and his two companions pat him on the back, all yelling with glee as the sun comes out again and the sky clears completely. What do we do? Xavier asks. Should one of us challenge for the belt or something? The other two shrug as Braun begins to return to his senses. Elias quietly watches as the Artist Collective's celebration is interrupted when Braun grabs onto the back of Sami's jacket as he gets to his feet. Braun lifts him up high above the other two. Sami kicks his legs and clings to his belt while squealing. Braun has only one eye open and a dark bruise is quickly forming across his nose. He sneers and looks at Sami, then looks down at Shinsuke and Cesaro. You can't challenge again this soon after losing. No rematch yet. No rematch yet. You're at the back of the line. You have to earn your shot. Sami yells at him, reminding him of how things work, or at least how they used to work. He looks down and quickly looks away and closes his eyes. He holds a bit more still, afraid of falling out of his jacket into his death below. I don't want a rematch. I'm just going to take the belt by taking you, Braun tells him. He looks back down at the artist and the cyborg and says to them sternly, if either of you try anything, I'll break his neck. The two of them look up at Sami, and neither moves. They wait for instructions from their leader. Okay, this is fine, Sami says. He says again, this is fine. He repeats it a few more times, trying to convince himself of how fine the situation is, while he dangles treacherously above a very unforgiving-looking earth. All right, Braun seems pleased. New day, Elias, let's go. Pretty sure this is not what Charlotte meant, Big E sighs. Well, he does have the belt. Sort of. Kofi attempts some optimism. Where are we going exactly? Braun then asks and wiggles Sami around in the air until he lets out a little yell, eliciting a jolly chuckle from Braun. And tune in next week for Chapter 12, Blisscross Journey to the Forgotten Lands of Nitro, Part 2. We need to catch up with them a little bit, and I thought I had something else to say, but maybe I don't. It seems to have slipped my mind. It must not have been important. So, thank you guys for listening, and come back next week. That's all. Thank you. And goodbye.